before we begin, let's find out who the speaker is. It's important to know the messenger before somebody shares a message. And I'm going to focus more on the conversation, collaborative discussion, rather than me sharing some truths. I do not have any authority of that kind. So my name is Bhuvanesh Awasthi, and you can call me Bhuvan. I've been here for about 6 years now in this country. I've lived in many other places, and I will just share a little bit about my history, why I'm speaking to you. So my academic education is in life sciences from India, and I focused on a particular topic, consciousness studies, from an institution called BITS Pilani in India. Following which I pursued a degree, a doctoral degree in cognitive neuroscience in Sydney, Australia, down under, as we call it. I also worked with the National Science Agency of Australia looking at specific research topics. Now, when I talk about cognitive neuroscience, essentially it's the science of mind-body relationship. How do thoughts originate? How do we experience the world? How do we perceive the world? Why do we feel the way we feel? Those types of questions. In one more slide, I'll give you a little bit about my history, but before that, a bit of my academic journey. Then I moved from Sydney to North America to do a postdoc in emotions and meditation. The weather wasn't that different from our Ontario region. That city is also on 5 lakes, so surrounded by water, but really cold. So I decided to go somewhere else for some time. I moved to the United Kingdom. Initially to Moscow to do a neuroeconomics postdoc, and then to the UK looking at embodied cognition, the role of the body in the experience of the world. You experience the world because you are embodied. Those types of scientific questions. Then I taught research and specific types of methods to Copenhagen students at the University of Copenhagen and Copenhagen Business School. This was again in Europe, and I was also teaching neuroscience and neuroimaging to students in Beijing, China. I returned to North America. I really like this region. I like the cold weather. I like warm people in cold weather, so that's what brought me here. I work as a behavioral scientist. In this process, I also learned a little bit about science policy, science diplomacy. I became a science diplomacy fellow with an international organization based in the Americas in Uruguay. And that has been my academic journey. So, to establish the messenger's background a bit. So I've been asking these questions on why do we ask anything? The curiosity aspect, but what do we want to find out? So as a youngster growing up in India, I was asking questions both in the scientific domain, but also from a spiritual perspective. Questions around truth seem to be more aligned in some cultures with spirituality, whereas in some aspects of scientific enterprise, it's about truth seeking. Science is about truth seeking as well. I was asking questions both in the spiritual and the scientific domains, but also exploring different ways of knowing. How do we know anything? How do you know that I exist here? Am I speaking to you in your imagination, or do you perceive me here? Your perception, right? I was also asking questions around who is the person, who is this questioner? And that's when the spiritual domain and the scientific domain intersect. Generally, they don't necessarily have common methods, but sometimes there is some intersection. We may or may not get into that today, but we'll see. I focused on brain-mind relationship, as I mentioned, as my academic journey, but with an openness to asking questions both within science and spiritual ways of knowing. So what are we doing today? I'm not here as some kind of an arbiter. I will be facilitating a conversation. That's my hope. I encourage you to raise questions. I will also do a small demo in between. We'll be looking at what is truth. So this is the agenda for today. Different ways of knowing, different aspects of inquiry. Why do we ask certain types of questions? Whether our questions are influenced by cultural, social, other types of environmental cues. How does truth relate to beliefs, knowledge, or even other types of inquiries? Language is important, terminologies are important. We won't get into any philosophical details if you don't prefer that, and I wouldn't want unnecessary philosophical tangent, but we can discuss when we use a certain term, truth, information, knowledge, belief, we don't necessarily use the same word when we mean something else. We'll be also looking at whether individual truths and collectives have any meaning, and what are we doing with when we say, this is my truth. Finally, some wrapping up towards a solution. I don't want you to leave with doubts. All the doubts are helpful. So we'll be exploring possible, let's say, convergence, agreements, and also disagreements, because you don't have to have an agreement on something which is not your experience. We'll begin with that, but let's start with some attentional grounding. This is voluntary. You may want to participate, you may not. So sit comfortably. Feel your feet on the ground. Shoulders relaxed. Breathe out. Relax and focus on something in the present moment. You may keep your eyes closed, you may keep them half open. Your choice. Focus on what's happening in your body. You may focus on the breath passing through your nostrils. Listen to the sounds around you. Mentally scan your body from head to toe. Observe the sensations. When your mind wanders, notice it and return it to the breath passing through your nostrils.
Excuse me. If I have to keep my eyes shut, then how can I read this?
You don't have to read, you can just focus on your breathing. Yes. Reading is not part of the instructions. It's for those who are keeping the eyes closed, open.
Okay.
Yes. this world of interaction with the outside. At times the outside enters you, and we believe it's our mind. Essentially, mind is interaction. So when we say what is truth, let's begin with an operational definition for now, because otherwise we won't be able to move forward anywhere. So when I say we'll be talking about truth, what is truth? I have some suggestions on the screen for you. Truth is what accurately reflects reality, with an emphasis on accuracy. Important to recognize that, because truth can mean different things to different people. But in this modern context, it's important that we focus on accuracy, and it should reflect reality. Truth means that if something is true, it corresponds to the actual state of affairs. What's happening out there. We're talking about the world, essentially. Yes, there is a subjective element, and we all experience the world in our unique ways. And as I mentioned, the mind is an interaction with the world. So the world outside is reflected inside you. The sound you heard, the speaker you're listening to. The speaker is outside of you. But you're experiencing everything in you, in the sense, in your mind. Also, truth is related to beliefs, knowledge, scientific and spiritual, subjective and objective. So there are obviously two components, something that you experience and something that you perceive that is outside of you, right? Okay, thank you. So there are different ways of exploring this, different ways of knowing something. How do you know that something exists? There are ways of finding out through sensory experience, and we will do a small demo of that too. Starting with, let's say, sense perception. Gathering information through our senses. We're able to see things, we're able to hear things. So sense perception. Then feeling things, emotion. Understanding through feelings and emotional responses, how you feel something. At times your eyes are closed when you're sleeping, for instance, when you're resting. Your sensory threshold, which means your responses to sounds, your responses to visual stimuli, to touch, goes down. The threshold goes down. You don't necessarily experience the outside world when you're sleeping, but you still experience, still feel. You see dreams. Then you get into a state of imagination as well, at times while sleeping as well as while being awake. So using creative thinking to generate ideas or possibilities, they form an essential way of knowing something. Then we have empiricism. Science, modern science uses this as one of the primary tools. Knowledge gained through sensory inputs, but also through observation and measurement. Experimentation, critical, because otherwise we'll be living in subjective domains. I see something to be yellow, right? The color is yellow here. But if we don't agree, somebody says I see pink, somebody says I see blue, then we don't have objective evidence for anything. It's all subjective. It's hard. So we need sometimes experimentation, observation, evidence, verification, testability, etc. I will explain those terms if you want, otherwise I'll keep it a little bit simpler. And then there are other ways of knowing. Faith, for instance. Believing in something without empirical evidence. Empirical means sensory. Empirical means evaluative from an experimental point of view. In that sense, empirical. There might be other types of evidence. Then we have authority, acquiring knowledge from experts. Believe somebody. That doesn't always work well in some contexts. Otherwise, it works very well. Because some office holder is saying something, we believe them. Whether it's a professor, a school teacher, a political leader at times, if you want to believe that they are close to truth. or anybody else, including authority figures in our history. Mr. Gandhi, for instance, although he's not an authority figure in the same way other political figures could be, but he was politically active. And then using rationalism, using logic. A negative method also works in some cases where you eliminate the possibilities, you eliminate the likelihoods of certain types of things to be true. So truth is not just assertive at times, it's about also trying to find out what is not true. Things like those. Reasoning is critical. Well, human beings, when they get enough training, they can get in that direction. And I'm emphasizing the word training here. Not just logic, but some more things like critical thinking. Okay, what you like, but at least one is necessary. Please feel free to have more than one. This is afternoon. This is a slightly rainy afternoon. Okay, yes, thank you. Keep going. So place the grape on your palm when you are ready. Let's have some time for everybody to have, if you want to participate. It's also voluntary. There's no magic. It's all safe. It comes from one of our supermarkets. I think it's a product of Canada.
They wash them.
I think they are washed. Niagara? Okay.
Canada, that's very good.
I think product of Ontario, right? Or somewhere else? BC has grapes? BC has grapes? Yeah, they should. Niagara, okay. Do we have trade barriers between BC and Ontario for grapes? The fresh grapes, I mean. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Products made out of grapes is separate. I heard about them. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
So many strawberries in BC. Strawberries in BC.
Strawberries from BC. So all the strawberries that I'm eating are from BC.
Ontario
Could
we
be.
have.
Ontario. Yeah. And the other berries are from East Coast, Atlantic, right? The blueberries. Yeah, my favorite part of being in this region. If I had done that in advance, I was not going to be sure whether you will keep it or not. So I had to do it when I begin. Everybody got that in the last row? If you have something of your own, you're also welcome to try that. You have your candy in your pocket, anywhere else. And the last row? You all have? You all got that? Wonderful. Everybody has. Thank you. Quick. Okay, so place it on your palm. Look at it with attention. Notice its color, shape, texture. Notice the anticipation of taste. Your mind is already telling you what it is. It is labeled. It has already labeled what it is. Your mind knows. It also knows how it will taste, right? But it is prior knowledge you're referring to right now. It is anticipation. Notice your breathing. Notice the pre-taste in your mouth. And you are welcome to go ahead and place it on your tongue and observe the sensations. You can eat it. You're having an experience. This is experience, right? It involves so many steps: observation, sensations, anticipation, prior knowledge. If I had brought in a particular kind of berry that grows not in Asia, not in India, not in North America, it would be very new for you. We'll do that next time. So, what you're perceiving, is this your actual experience? Is your sense perception now giving you some information about the world, about the grape, right? So my question to you is my perception of the world a true picture of the reality? You experience the grape, you're not imagining it, right? I'm not not showing you just a picture, you're tasting it now. So there is a sensory experience. Let's see. Do you see white dots turning gray at the intersection? Keep your eye on one of the white dots at the intersection. Anybody? You see the other dots turn gray? Nothing is happening on the screen, it's your perception. You move your eye to another white dot, the remaining turns gray. But where is this changing? But they're not changing on the screen, they're changing in you. Yeah. Oh, you attribute it to the screen. Okay, thank you. Let's see. One more. Do you see anything appearing? If you keep your eye on one of these circles, one of the intersections, that there's a circle, it either appears or disappears. Nothing is happening on the screen, it's happening inside you. That appearance and disappearance is happening because something in your brain is trying to make sense of it. Okay, easier one. How many legs do you see? Raise your hand. Any number? Five. Any other number? Five. Everybody sees five? Eight, yes. Seven, you see? I don't think the elephant is walking, has 8 legs or 5 legs. So, 5, 7, 8, 4. Really? Okay, let's see. Somebody says 4. 1, 2.
This is four.
4.
And this is the trunk.
5.
That's not a leg.
But there were people who were saying 8.
We are simply guessing.
So your perception is not giving you a true picture of the world? What's happening? Yes.
No, I haven't got a question. It's just that,
How many legs do you see? That's the question. You see 4. Gautam says 5. Somebody said 8. 4? So we know that there are only 4 legs, but you see 8. So there's a discrepancy between what you know and what you see. Is there a discrepancy between what you see and what you know?
That's right. It is.
See, but you experienced something about the grape, which was true, right? The grape didn't taste like strawberries. Did that taste like strawberries to you? No. I haven't tasted it, so I can hallucinate. I can imagine it could be guava or mango. Okay. Do you see this line as parallel, especially at the center? Anybody who sees the line exactly parallel?
Only if you squint at it.
Oh, I like the trick. Thank you. Oh, I like your squint too. Anybody else who can see the line as parallel? Entirely parallel? It starts to bulge in the center?
In the middle is going like this.
No, it is not. If you take a measurement, I can. It's a straight line, they're parallel lines.
But in the middle it looks
Hmm.
like badly.
Oh, okay. So the perception is different from what this image is, at least to me. Well, like just ordinary sensory perception, sensory input. The brain is trying to make sense of it. Okay, the two squares are of the same gray shade, right?
Yeah.
Everybody agrees? Any difference of opinion there? Difference of perception there?
No, the shades are different.
This is dark.
Right is darker.
The shade is different.
Yeah, yeah. This
Really?
one. Yeah.
No.
Because of light.
Light, only due
Okay,
light.
okay. They are exactly the same. You will, whosoever, they're exactly the same. No?
No, this one is dark.
Because of light.
The shade
No.
is different.
Okay, let me switch off the lights, it will be easier. So we'll see.
Yeah.
They are exactly the same, I just copy pasted them. So they're exactly the same shade because I did not create a new one, I just copy pasted. Command C, command V. Yes, thank you.
Both are same.
Yes, thank you. You will see now it's like something else.
One is dark and one is.
Yes, which was not the case previously. Now what do you see? You see one of them is lighter than the other?
Yeah.
It's more apparent because the context changed.
There's a contrast now.
Surrounded by something else. Yes, contrast. When I'm in Canada, I'm seen differently because I'm surrounded and I'm in a different context. When I'm in India, when I'm in United States, when I'm in South America, the same person changes by perception but also experience. Okay, I will switch off the light.
Right there,
That one.
There's two of them.
there are two lights.
Yes. So my request is to keep your eye on the white dot. Without blinking, the white dot. With color red, you see that? In white, there is a white dot. White small dot. Keep your eye there for about 10-15 seconds. Keep your eye on the white dot between the two words. Keep your eye, focus on it. Tell me, what did you experience? Did you see color red written in red on this white screen? How many saw that? But there is nothing written on the white screen.
Now, see our eyes, now you see the like two dots on that. Now you, on the screen, because we look too long, the red color, now you can see on the screen is reddish spots.
So you mean you brought that red on a white screen
Yeah.
from somewhere.
Yeah.
So something in your mind, something in your brain projected it onto the screen, right? Everybody agrees with that? Perfect. I'm in the community of vision scientists. Thank you. That is what happens. So we perceive the world by not just what's outside, but also by what is inside us. How our brain collected this information in like 10-15 seconds and then projected it. So you saw color red written in red on a white screen, which is not on the screen. Small example of how our perception is a construction. One more thing. I see only pebbles. Somebody else see something else?
I see the face. I see the face.
People at the back. Anybody does not see the face?
We see the face.
It's just pebbles. Where is the face?
See the
Eyes, mouth, nose.
There's a face, whole face, eyes, nose, everything is there.
Can you name the person?
No.
No. Okay, it's an unknown face. But you see the face. Well, this was a topic of yes, there is a face, but not on the screen. There are pebbles. The face is because our brain tends to see things, create a face-like structure. Topic of my PhD, I looked at face perception. A particular area in the brain is is expecting faces in the outside world, like on the moon, on the mountain, on the screen. Some people, a small percentage of people will not see the face. And it's normal, it's not right, because there is no face there. Face blindness is a condition where they don't have a percept of a face. So they don't see the face. Yes?
Okay. And you said that there is no face.
Yes, that's correct.
The person whosoever created intentionally is not the face. Then how come majority of us can see the face? It's not 1%, 2%. I think majority.
Most of
yes,
us,
we can
yes.
see it.
Like most of us see the face in the moon, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of distorted face. Not everybody. 2.5% of regular population without a brain damage does not see a face and will not see a face. So we'll gather, let's say, 200 people here in Ottawa. There's a high likelihood that 2 or 4 people out of them, let's say 1,000 people, 10,000. We are a million population, so we will find some people who will not say that there is a face there, because they have a condition, developmental prosopagnosia. Yeah, it's a scientific name for face blindness, which occurs without any brain damage. Of course, if you damage the right temporal cortex, anterior part here, you will lose the capacity to recognize faces, and you will not notice any face here. So that's the structure part. I'm not saying the physical structure is responsible for that, but that's where the computation happens. Okay.
I see the face of Mark Carney before you.
Oh,
Very good.
like that.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Not Trudeau?
Not Trump.
Why do you say that? Are you related to Mr. Carney?
Well, when I look at him on television, I
Oh.
see that the profession is
Okay, okay, that's great. Okay. Yes.
You see other structures that you took?
Oh, yes. What are the structures?
Fish.
Fish. Okay. Here, right?
These are eyes. These are eyes.
But somebody can see some kind of a shrimp.
That's your imagining.
Eyebrows, okay. And also Mark Carney, so there's an identity too. Yeah, like most of us have heard about the former governor of Bank of Canada. So if somebody comes up, and now it's well known, but if we had no prior information that Mark Carney exists, or the person of this appearance exists, we will not name this face as possible Mark Carney face, right?
Right.
So we have prior knowledge, and we try to associate things. Okay? Yes, Eric.
Were the pebbles manipulated, the photo manipulated, or was this somebody's lucky random photograph?
Nothing is manipulated. Of course, they are put in a particular way that you will perceive something.
Yeah.
Image is not manipulated. Yeah. Thank you.
Could it also be a case of extrasensory perception?
Extrasensory perception. Maybe. What do you mean? Like,
Like a premonition?
oh, I don't know. I don't think so. Unless you are attributing Mark Carney to have some extrasensory skills. And he's sitting here and helping us. Yeah? This is his first week. Yes.
You know, some people can remember faces but can't remember names.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is there a
it
certain
does.
part of the brain which is oriented to face structures?
Yes, exactly. Yes, absolutely. We have a specific area dedicated to face recognition, and face recognition is, in response to Dr. Indu's question, do we have a specific area responsible for face recognition? Yes. It's much more ancient in human evolution. That's well preserved. Monkeys have that, most primates have that, mammals have that, even fishes have face recognition, which are far more evolutionarily ancient in our evolutionary ways of looking at life. Naming is much more recent. Language is far more recent in human evolution compared to recognizing each other by facial expression. Smiling, laughing, angry, etc. Or identity even, like this specific individual. I just saw about a few months back some research that showed that elephants have very good face recognition. In fact, they have names of each other. They recognize each other by specific sounds, which are similar to human naming convention. But that is, human language is far more recent. So if you don't remember people's names, but you remember their face, that's normal. Most of us have that. Except, as I mentioned, there's a condition where maybe developmental trajectory was unusual, where people do not develop normal familiar face recognition, as I called face blindness or prosopagnosia. It also occurs in a condition called autism spectrum disorder. So ASD, some people have that limitation too, face recognition. Yes?
Was this face designed by somebody by putting the pebbles?
Yes, seemingly, but there's no face that has been designed. It's that when you put pebbles together in a particular way, it seems to see that there is a face-like structure, although there is no face. It's just the arrangement.
Right.
Right? Okay. Let's move forward. When we talk about truth, we are discussing a variety of things here. Lots of themes we have touched upon, including perception, which is my area of focus or expertise, so I can talk more confidently there. And my question to you is our perception a true picture of the world out there? Okay, no. Not necessary, okay?
Because it is based on your bias also.
Yes, based on bias, yes. Anything else? We saw a demonstration of those things, right? But you did perceive the grape as a sweet fruit that you are familiar with, right?
Well, I'm sorry, I
Yes.
don't understand this. It's my truth. If I see it that way, it is my truth. If you cannot see it that way, it is also your truth.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
What is the problem here?
No problem. Then it remains your truth. And it's all right, no problem. If you say that there is a face here, and I don't see a face, then the solution is to not impose each other's perception ideas. Right? But sometimes we need agreements on some things. We'll get there. Thank you for that question. We're moving in that direction. So perception, as we agree, is not necessarily, somebody said, not necessarily a true picture of the world out there. Then do we rely on memory? What happened? Now you have a short-term memory of how the grape tasted. You have a short-term memory of how you navigated to this hall, to this building. Well, if you have been here regularly, you will develop a long-term memory of it. But is memory a true picture of what really happened? Oh, Gautam is saying no. Why?
People tend to forget.
Yes?
People tend to let their biases and their truth influence the objective reality.
Oh yes, I like that.
Memory gets distorted.
Memory gets distorted. Oh, thank you. Eric?
I was going to say something similar.
Okay.
Your memories can get changed and restructured.
Yeah.
Yes?
Faulty memory, you might think that thing happened.
Mhm.
And you're sure, 100% sure.
Yes.
But somebody says it didn't happen, but you're probably right.
Wow, thank you. Yes?
I think sometimes our imagination is stronger
Mm.
in creating something than your memory of your memory.
Absolutely. Memory of your memory. Yes.
Can be manipulated.
It can be manipulated. Wow. I'm so pleased. Yes. Some more things? Yes?
Based on your experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say trauma can really affect memory, and then our own mind fills things in that may come from the imagination.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Yes?
What you read or what you see?
Is it?
What you read,
Yes.
what you see.
Oh. Is it what you read or is it what you see? There are differences there, exactly. Well, all of us are expert readers now, and if you have kids who are learning to read, you will notice that they read with each symbol. And we don't read it anymore like that. We read in chunk of words, we read in chunks of sentences. Expert readers versus novice readers. So, yes, it's what you see versus what you read, and what you make meaning out of. But here, for the memory context, memory is reconstruction. This is the research on memory. Memory is not a true picture of the world. It is an interpretation. And it is subject to modification, influences, interventions, etc. We add new elements to any memory we recall. We are constantly scaffolding whatever happened. We will, towards the end of this session, touch upon one aspect, because Gandhiji is the reason why this center and this talk is happening, and his autobiography. Generally, there is a belief and there is a view that autobiographies are not always a true picture of what actually happened, because a person is recalling and reconstructing. But we won't get into Gandhiji's autobiographical validity or not today. Are my beliefs based on information or something else, on prejudice notion? Because I talk beliefs, experience. Okay, so we form beliefs based on experience. Anything else?
Could be biased.
Could be both.
Biased? Yes, both.
Could be both.
Yes.
Persuasion and logic.
Yes, absolutely.
Condition
Conditioning. Yes. What kind of conditioning?
from childhood, 1
Yes.
to 10 can condition us.
Yes, exactly. And as we grow, as children perceive the world differently from teenagers, and they perceive the world differently from young adults to seniors. So your body plays a big role. Do I want to verify and find evidence, including challenging my beliefs? So in the context of truth, beliefs, information, this becomes a critical question. Not everybody is ready to ask these kinds of questions because it's so hard. Am I open to contrarian views? Like, was there a face? No, that's just a perception question. Very easy to answer and very easy to disagree with and go home with the disagreements. Yes, Dr. Indu.
You know, in legal arena, they depend upon so much on memory of the people, of the witnesses, and that is sometimes called.
Exactly. Eyewitness memory.
So
Yes.
how do, and I think we all absorb that guilty, not guilty verdict based on people's, other people's memory.
Absolutely.
And make our own memory accordingly.
Yes.
So I'm just putting it
Yes,
in practice
absolutely.
and question
Yeah.
myself.
Yes. Collective memories. In fact, we all help each other remember, and we all help each other forget. There's something called collective amnesia. We try to not touch upon certain things collectively as a society. Yes.
It also depends on how the question is asked.
Absolutely. Wow. Yes. How you
Because
frame
if
it.
it's all very aggressively,
Mm.
you may have a very different memory and many
Yes.
things in it or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
if somebody is trying to sugarcoat it, okay, then you have a different reflection.
Absolutely. Thank you. Somebody else was saying something? No? Okay. So am I open to contrarian views? Because if I'm truth seeking, if I'm seeking truth, do I want to verify what I believe?
Sure.
And be open to the challenges that my beliefs could be based on faulty information, limited evidence. What counts as evidence? Will I revise my beliefs?
Some do, some don't.
Some do and some don't, yes. We tend to stay back in our comfort zones, in echo chambers, because no, that can't be true. No, that can't be true because I know the right thing and my group agrees with me. My large group agrees with me. So during my postdoc in neuroeconomics in Moscow, I studied social conformity, herd mentality. Why do people follow the crowd? Why do people we did an experiment where we asked people to actually rate some attractiveness of faces, and they said, yeah, this face is like out of 5, 3-level attractiveness. Then we tell them, 500 people actually rated face number 3 as attractive. Would you want to change your opinion? That's one condition in the experiment. And then I tell another group of people, or the same group of people, then experimental manipulation, different condition. 5 million people said that the face number 2 was most attractive. when we give people information about how many more people rated a face attractive, people are willing to modify their own view on attractiveness. Well, we were testing attractiveness as an easy manipulative belief. So more people believe something, larger the group, higher likelihood of an individual trying to align with the group. Because how can that be? How can 500 million people, 500,000 people be wrong? Oh, let me align, because there is supposedly some psychological safety in the crowd. There's no wisdom in the crowd, but there is safety, perceived safety in the crowd.
In this era of social upheaval, social world, so to say, we have influencers.
Yes. Oh.
And like, they are hired for that purpose to influence. So you need to change your opinion or change your beliefs or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Okay. And sometimes they're very effective. Sometimes you go, like I said, well, she's a social influencer. All she's trying to do is start something, and you react to other people. Okay. We have a certain opinion. We may have certain opinion about Mr. T down south.
Yes.
Okay. But if there is somebody trying to tell us, no, he's not what he is, we are going to change our mind.
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
we are forced to change our mind.
Yes, exactly. And then I have mentioned appeal to authority. When you are an authority figure, or you have that power, you can influence more than exactly the word influencer.
But here is the thing, Trudeau
Yes.
for some time now bought the media in order to encourage a certain point of view. But eventually the public actually realized what was happening. This is why he was struck out. So at some point, the lie will be exposed.
I like that, yes. Lies do get exposed, okay?
Can you repeat the question, please?
There's a comment
Answer.
that, yeah, the comment, he wants you to repeat the
Oh,
comment.
to repeat the comment. For some time, Trudeau bought the mainstream media to advance his way of thinking. But eventually, his popularity plummeted, and the people realized what was going on. So the lie will, at some point, be exposed. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And that sometime can be a long time. Depends on a variety of factors, and we are getting there. See, individual versus collective. And because we are different individuals and different ways of looking at life, different body types, the logic of a cat and the truth for a cat, and the truth that a cat is living is not going to be the same as the truth for a mouse or a group of mice. Yes. In one of the ancient texts in India, Nyaya Darshana, so the Nyaya, which means logic, there are different kinds of logic, and sometimes people do not agree because they tend to have a different logical worldview. So what seems logical to a cat will not seem logical to a mouse. Now there are different species. In humans, no, the Nyaya Darshana talks about different types of logic, where different people look at the world and experience the world differently. Somebody mentioned experience here. Yes, and also the experience of the world. So your logic could be different. Even in a human form, if you operate in a particular socio-economic environment, we use the term elite at times, they tend to have a view on things. And then there are the people, they have the views, and they are very resistant to a contrarian view. And this is true. I have met some people in person who believe that our planet is different in shape. Who decides what is true in that case? Scientists?
The person with the most money.
Oh, with most money, yes, exactly. What else? Do religions have a control over what is true? Who has it? Who controls the truth?
Yes.
That's right.
Collective.
Collectively, yes. Collective strength. Yes.
Who can make us afraid?
Who can make us separate? Yes. Afraid, fear. Absolutely, yes.
They scare you off.
Scare you off. Yes. Yes, Aprendo.
Repeated information.
Repeating information.
Even when in the beginning you think it's not true.
Yes.
You keep getting it.
Going it.
That,
Yes.
That it becomes true for people.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is, I don't know which category it will fill.
Ah.
Whether it is science or it is collective.
Mhm.
But to me,
Mhm.
if you say it live,
Yes.
at times it becomes true for people.
Yes, I like that. Thank you. That's true. Yes.
I think I will go along with number one science and the two religion.
Mhm.
Three religion.
Okay.
If we have only one of them, I will,
Oh,
I'm in the next higher level.
okay. So you believe there's a hierarchy in some way and a sequence. Okay, wonderful. I did not intend that on the slide, but thank you for that. Reading it in there. So sometimes, you can repeat things and you can keep saying things, including, sometimes trying to prevent certain information to be perceived or seen by people. Right? These are actual screenshots from actual sources of information many people consume, most people consume. And at times governments say we have a legislation, we will not let you see certain kinds of content. We have some kind of a bill as well, I heard about, right? We'll see more. We can discuss that afterwards if you like. And different arbiters of truth. And then there are people who want to have an alternative to truth. They have the right version. Things like those. It happens in everyday life. It happens in interpersonal lives as well. Yes? Oh, okay. Yes, just a reminder of things. Who has the truth? Where is the truth? And what kind of truth? So I put two quotes from two of the major traditions in the world, religious inquiry. One about who has the truth? I am the way and the truth and the life. I like this as a kid. When I was exposed, I really liked this, so I put it here because it appeals to me. I feel very good reading that. And in Bhagavad Gita, tat vidi pranipaten pariprashnena sevaya upadeshyante jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina, which means you get to go to somebody who knows the truth, surrender, serve them, and then they will impart you. Yes.
So what you said is different than what you have on the screen. The screen
Yes.
version is very gender specific, it's he and him.
Oh.
But what you said was somebody, so in
Okay.
Sanskrit, which
Yeah.
is it?
There is no he, except the translation is in English in
So
he.
the-
Yes. Yeah. You can say they there. Gender specific, sorry. Okay. Yes. Tadvedi paripatena pariprashnena sevya. There is no gender there. But the translation has, I've used the male gender. I can use they there. Thank you. You work with the government. Like me. Yes.
Not
Aprendo.
being all, I can't say all, but most of us are told as a child, respect your teacher because that's where you learn.
Yes.
That little thing. And to me, this means teacher, no matter,
Yes.
just not spiritual, but anything what you have to learn.
Yes.
Medicine,
Mm.
every day, is the teacher.
There's a teacher.
Who
Yes.
is knowledgeable.
Yes.
And will impart that knowledge to you.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
you also have perception of that teacher,
Yes.
what that teacher has
Mm.
learned.
Yes. Thank you for that.
It's a particular knowledge.
Particular kind of knowledge. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Particular kind of knowledge. Not always the same, because scientific knowledge is different. And I said previously, different ways of knowing. You're going to say something?
No, I'm
Yes.
just
Yes.
contemplating it all. It's a
Yes.
very interesting discussion. And I suppose I come at it really remembering the land-based introduction that Anil presented and the implications of the laws of nature
Yes.
in how we
Mm.
find our way to truth.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, Eric.
Isn't this the appeal to authority version of truth here as opposed to the empirical approach?
Maybe a bit if you want to say that somebody wants to assert. I can't make a comment on that. As Dr. Hindu said, there is an appeal to the teacher who knows. Somebody like an expert, more than authority. But maybe because you might know better for the first one. The second one, there is no authority as far as I can see. There's no reference to an authority. It's just say Tattvadarshi, which means the one who has seen it, the one who knows the truth. So go to them.
A
Seek
spiritual
them.
master
Yes.
could be randomly encountered, or would be someone you would know of as being a spiritual master?
I like that. Thank you. I'm coming to that answer in my next section. Is there one truth? Or are there many truths? And if there are teachers, how do you get to that? So this is mostly from a spiritual point of view. I have put something which is quite unique. One of the traditions in India, Jain tradition, talks about anekantavad, which means anekant, many-sidedness, non-one-sidedness, asserts that ultimate truth and reality cannot be captured by a single perspective, because truth is perhaps not what it seems like, at least from an empirical, from a sensory perspective. We talked about sensory evidence as useful but not always reliable. So multiplicity of viewpoints. Reality can be perceived differently from various viewpoints. If you're sitting at the corner of the room versus the center of the room, you see things a bit differently. Even visually you see differently. Now, if you're based in the United States, if you're part of a US example, sorry, Republican Party versus sitting here, you'll perceive things a bit differently. And Anekantavad, or one of the approaches, is non-absolutism. Acceptance of relativism and pluralism, rejecting dogmatic and absolutist views, rejecting authority figures from the point of view of authority figures, not rejecting authoritative approaches. And then partial truths. Nobody has fundamental final answers. So those approaches are helpful when you want to seek, because authorities can use power to subvert not only the truth but also your inquiry. Okay, what can we do? What are the solutions? I'm asking you, audience. No? You feel helpless?
Free to think whatever they want to do.
Oh, okay, yes.
Challenge the truth.
Challenge the truth, or challenge the status quo.
Challenge the status quo.
Okay. What has been told to you? Wonderful. Yes, I like that. Thank you.
And critical thinking.
Critical thinking. Yes.
Self-inquiry and intuition.
Oh, you got all the slides in here. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes, Eric.
Test and verification.
Okay, wonderful. Yes.
Isn't this the story of the elephant and the blind?
Yeah.
Come in?
Wow.
Everybody touching different parts of the elephant, thinking
Yes.
it's a snake or a tree or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes. So you are experiencing the world. Yes. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Hindu.
I think what I got it is the other person's opinion.
Absolutely.
Their truth would be different than yours.
Yes. Yes, exactly. In agreement here. We have a lot of agreement and a lot of knowledge here, close to the truth. What about misinformation and disinformation? Especially in the context of modern society, somebody already touched upon that here. Source and evaluation of information, critical thinking. Somebody already touched upon those points. Motivations, motivated reasoning. It's very powerful. When I moved to North America, I learned about a whole discipline called rhetoric studies. I was never exposed to it. I was baffled and surprised and happy to learn that you can train in these kinds of disciplines. When I learned about lobbying, I was also very impressed. Oh, this exists as a profession. You can do that? Wow. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Human misinformation
Election time.
can be in many forms.
Yes.
For a simple thing, somebody sitting in a village in India,
Mhm.
he's told you go to Canada or US, the birds will come back from the tree.
Oh.
That's why they run.
only here. You know, the textbooks are written where they say the roads in Europe are paved with gold and silver.
Other thing is, if I'm a liberal,
Yes.
and I hear something from conservatives,
Yes.
same information, I'll interpret it different way because of my own bias.
Yes, or vantage points.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Poilievre comes out very angry in his commercials, so that either you accept that angerness or he says, oh, he's just acting.
Yes. Like that. Thank you. It's not, yes, I agree. It's not just politicians, it happens all the time. What do we do? One option is keep mental hygiene. Important, hard, but we have to do the hard work and make it easy. It's as important as brushing your teeth. Daily habit that supports well-being, proactive steps that will help you build resilience. Because when you question, as somebody already pointed out, or challenge, it will become a bit easier. It will not be an echo chamber. You may not feel settled. You may feel very uncertain. But in an informational landscape, that's one approach, important. We're living in a complex world. The complexity is human creation, but also a result of a variety of other factors that are not created by individuals. What do? We have an individual responsibility where we make cognitive effort. It is hard. Trying to challenge, trying to see, is this true? Is it valid? What's the source? Is there a motivated reasoning behind it? Then there is a collective effort, because you can't do it all alone. Lone wolves, people who are whistleblowers at times, or people who are trying to fight the system, eventually get tired. Sometimes they are punished for asking the questions. It's really tough. So collective responsibility, resources and collaboration are important. People make efforts to get together because human beings are social and we need each other. We also need experimentation and evaluation. Eric pointed out, finding out validation, inquiry, because the world is increasingly complex and we are making it that way as well. There's a human element there. When I talk about truth, truth is not always understood in the same way in science as it is in other knowledge domains, especially spiritual domains. So I say two kinds of inquiries, intellectual and existential. One of my early pictures I shared where I'm sitting under a large banyan tree in South India in a Sanskrit village. It's more about existential inquiry. Some truths can be answered through psychological reasoning, through collective efforts. Some truths you have to live through. Especially on a spiritual path. Somebody was asking about this a moment ago. Authority. So no authority but teachers. You may need guidance and you need milestones because there is nobody who has taken that journey before you, because it is your individual journey. When somebody says I'm living my truth, it could be in the world of behavior or it could also be in the world of the spiritual inquiry. And in that case, it's much harder to seek confirmation that you are on the right path, because that path nobody else has ever walked, because it's your individual path. So in those cases, spiritual traditions talked about sadhu, guru, shastra, or essentially, guidance from teachers, from aspirants, and from texts. Also Buddha, Sangha, and Dhamma. In the context of science, we are also seeking truth. The definition of science is refinement of everyday thinking, according to Einstein. It's a closer and closer approximation to truth. So science is also truth seeking, but the methodology is different. Methodology is more observation, evaluation, falsifiability. In principle, things can turn out to be false, but we are willing to take that path because we are not afraid. And also because we believe in paradigm shifts. So Max Planck, one of the founders of quantum theory, said science progresses, moves from funeral to funeral. So theories get discarded in due course of time. So that risk exists, and that is a fact of science. In philosophy of science, we talk about, there's a term called pessimistic meta-induction. We are pessimists in science that, what we know today will eventually be replaced. So we can't be absolute in our confidence that what we know will not change ever. So that is the scientific approach to truth. Dr. Hindu was raising her hand.
In our intellectual inquiry, where does ego come in?
Ego is essential.
Is it placed in that path, or is it calculated path?
It is important because ego is for self-preservation. At least in early stages it is important. Because who is inquiring? And you need to protect yourself, and that ego helps you, at least in the early stages, as I say. Later on, when you are on a path of, spiritual evolution, when you recognize that you are not different from the cosmos, then of course the ego will dissolve and disappear. But you don't have to necessarily see it as a barrier in the early stages. That's my view of things. Okay. Let's come to Mr. Gandhi's view, and then we'll wrap up. Mr. Gandhi had a lot of views on truth. His autobiography is called My Experiments with Truth. So let's learn from Gandhiji's views. He showcases his introspective journey and perspective on personal growth and societal change. He was quick to recognize that individuals don't exist in isolation. That's why he made so much effort in social reform. The kind of society he grew up in, he found around him, whether it was in India or in South Africa or in the rest of the world, being an aware individual, he made efforts because he was seeking his truth, but also not walking alone. He was trying to keep pace with what's happening around him. So he had unflinching honesty. That's the critical factor according to Gandhiji. He provides a detailed account of what he was seeking, his triumphs, his struggles, his limitations, his failures. He was also talking about life as an experiment. That's why the title, My Experiments with Truth. So even if you fail, you gain knowledge. Like a scientist, you experiment, you design, you test a hypothesis, and you find out that some things work and some things don't. Gandhiji talked about various domains of his life and experiments with things in the context of spirituality, parenting, education, morality, medicine, and he wrote about all of this. He was learning from experiences. An experiment is successful if something is learned from it. This allowed him to learn from past mistakes and correct them, if he could, treating them as opportunities rather than failures. So that's one useful way we can learn from Gandhiji in terms of seeking truth in a complex world. His world was complex enough, we have a more complex world. He was talking about self-awareness. He brought in a variety of methods to do that. His experiments, and then fueled by passion for justice, for his country, for society, he inspired many, many leaders across the globe, not just in India, but in many, many countries where there was a space for that. Moral and spiritual evolution. His book explores journey through various religious and philosophical traditions. Gandhiji was so keen on trying to find a common ground between seemingly opposing views in some contexts. Of course, some people did not like that because they were not privy to Gandhiji's views on those. And it could be that Gandhiji was experimenting. Now, we are not here to discuss what went wrong or not, but he tried his best. He was trying to find what we call sarva dharma sambhav, common elements in all religions. And we happen to have all of them in India. His commitment to satyagraha, non-violent resistance, and belief in human goodness. A lot of people believe that Gandhiji's alignment with the British was like silly. Because Gandhiji believed, seemingly from his own admission, that British are humans and we can find goodness in them. We can collaborate with them. And it was a great experiment. His emphasis on means over ends, means to achieve noble ends. He was very particular about this, what steps you take towards the final goal. Even if your goal is further away, you need to take moral steps. You can't bypass, you can't use violence. That was his view, and that was very relevant for his time. Of course, there were people who differed from Gandhiji. So to conclude, or to come closer to my part of this, and then I'll want more of your inputs again. Truth seeking involves sustained curiosity. I believe this is critical. Partly because at times with the living in the complex world, we tend to forget and we tend to get tired that curiosity is critical. In addition, we need to train our body mind. We can't just be saying that whatever comes to me, my thoughts, my ideas, and they're sufficient. What I perceive is a true picture of the world. What I understood is true, and there is no bias. I don't have biases. I have no way to evaluate them, so I don't need to get in that environment where I could be challenged. I call the process refinement of our perception. Science needs that. In science, we use methods that are independent of our perceptual capacities. We use instruments. We take measurements that are not from one laboratory, from one country, from one group of scientists. Scientists collaborate with other scientists, at times in an adversarial fashion, which means if one scientist wants to test this hypothesis and wants to show that this X or Y conditions are true, another group of scientists can collaborate in an adversarial fashion to show that X and Y conditions are not true. So in a true spirit of inquiry and adversarial collaboration, that requires different space and different time and different groups of people who may or may not agree with our viewpoints. But that's scientific. Even in the spiritual domain, you need to refine your perception. You need to refine your body-mind. The entire tradition of yoga is about refinement of body and mind. When people practice yoga, they thank the obeisances to the founder, one of the major founders, Patanjali, where we say, Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena. The one who gave us yoga for cleansing of the mind through yoga, cleansing of the body through Ayurveda, and cleansing of the speech through grammar. So it's a refinement process. It's like if you can't see, if some of us have spectacles, it helps you focus, it helps you see what is there without any aberration, without any limitation. If you don't have your spectacles, if you don't have your eyeglasses corrected to the right levels, you won't see things correctly. There is a refinement needed. Similarly, more refinement on thought process, emotional influences, things like those. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. I welcome more comments and questions and ideas about what is possible. And this would remind you that even authority figures, famous people, when they say this is impossible, we need to take it with lots of salt and spicy substances.
Bhuvanesh, I have a question.
Would you like to elaborate a little more and say a little more about the linkage between the first part and the second part, which is experimentation? I am unable to relate it because of ignorance or whatever. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more?
Okay, so I talked about truth, belief, sensory knowledge, reliance on perception, reliance on memory, and how do we know what to do in a complex world. So Gandhiji had experimented himself, so there's an experimentation part, and then he refined himself. He tried to figure out how to bring about a change in his body-mind, his routine, his ways of relating with people, and the society at large. So he made specific rules. If you look at his biography, an autobiography, he has made several rules about what should happen, what should not happen in his ashram, how should people behave, because he was trying to find common elements in a diverse society like India. At the same time, he was living through an internal journey of inquiry. I tend to think Gandhiji was a spiritual man who was politically active. So he was seeking truth in his ways, in his limited ways, in the ways that were around, in the ways that were available to him. I don't think there was a computer science, there was a computer or a LLM, large language model. I don't know if he had access to encyclopedias, maybe he did. But he tried, he was reading quite extensively. So he was making an effort to live truthfully in the world that was complex. So in that sense they are related, and because the session is hosted by the Gandhi Center, and Gandhiji's autobiography is called My Experiments with Truth. So an inspiration from a teacher, not an authority figure, a teacher.
Reading few
Yes.
biographies, my sort of thinking about biographies or autobiography, they are not necessarily truth. Not necessarily Gandhi's, but I am saying in general.
Yes.
But in people's writing, they, in their own perception, they want to make it a better world.
Yes.
In their own way, whether it's a religion or whatever.
Yes.
And so, I think a lot of this biography, read few biographies. You know, we have to, it's not like science, we can prove it is wrong or right. But biographies are just like a religion. You cannot really debate mythology or
It's like a story, yes, 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 an opinion, because it helps them. It helps them see the world in their way, the individual truth. And because they are written, and they are perhaps from somebody who wants to share their story with others. Maybe there's a collective. There are people who want to learn from them. Some sort of, let's say, influencer approach. Maybe 1 million influencers, 1 million followers of that influencer. Yes, exactly. They are not like an objective truth. Partly because not only autobiographies are more biased, perhaps, than biographies. Although biographers can be paid to write certain ways, right? Paid means influenced, incentivized.
Based on what they find out.
What they find out, how many facts are available, how many facts are allowed to be discussed.
Now writing biography is a profession.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
people who, people hire actually
Mm.
to create a book for them.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Tell their truths.
Yes.
And it probably has bias from the
Mm.
biographer, person who's writing the biography.
Mm. Yes, exactly. Because they want to leave a legacy behind at times, right? They want to let the world know how good or not so good they were, or what they experienced, and how they want to be perceived, perhaps, even when they're gone. Variety of motivations. Yeah, paid to write, yes. Yes.
We have come to realize that truth is different for different people.
Okay.
But there is one thing that is not different for different people, is being in truth.
Being in truth.
Being in truth, meaning that I say what I think, and I do what I say in every moment. I may change from moment to moment, but if I stay with this sensation that I say absolutely what I am thinking, and I do what I am saying in this moment, I am being in truth all the time. And from this we can actually learn from each other.
Thank you.
But if I think one thing and say another and do something else, I just confuse the world.
Yes. Thank you. I like that. Wonderful summary. Thank you. Yes.
There used to be a cartoonist, R.K. Lakshman. I once saw his cartoon, and his cartoon was a politician came out of the parliament, and the press reporters asked him, how do you determine what is true? They said, well, we always follow the voice of our conscience, but we keep our conscience flexible. I have a question, Bhuvanesh.
Yes.
Following up on Dr. Indu's comment in the courtroom, where they rely on the witnesses' comments, and because courtrooms are always looking for the truth, they're looking for what happened, they're looking for a proof, evidence, and three witnesses come and describe the situation, And if there is some kind of a consistency in their stories, they take it as truth. Has there been a legal research into validating that truth? Because witnesses are always coachable. They can always be told what to say, and they often lie. Right? So has there been research about how to validate the witnesses?
Wonderful question. I do not have an answer to that. I have not studied legal research. You know that if you ask, so related to that, eyewitness testimony, I'm aware of that. It's unreliable, because if you ask somebody what happened 1 hour ago at this location, even if they were present and attentive, in due course of time the memory trace fades. But because human beings have memory process, which is a reconstruction process, people try to add things. You know, I remember it was a pink color and the person had long hair, whatever. It could be a mix of that reconstruction process in eyewitness aspects. I also know from my research, which was cited by other people in Australia, my PhD is from Australia, that and Australians did a project on face recognition. And this research showed that your officers at the border are not able to necessarily match the face with your passport picture accurately, because it's, first of all, it's a perception thing. You can look at the picture, look at the person, look at the picture, look at the person, and they're not always right. It's very hard for humans. So, perception point of view, we have evidence, to my knowledge, that things are a little hazy. I can't comment on whether there is research, whether the witnesses, their coachability, and whether they are reliable in their evidence that they're sharing. I have no idea. I would ask anybody else to comment on it if you know.
Sometimes legal arguments like the judges use on the balance of probabilities. This part, my judgment is on the balance of probabilities.
Yeah, so probability, likelihood. Okay. Eric.
I wanted to share a little something in the adversarial collaboration space. You spoke about this with science and progressively closer approximations to hopefully objective truth. A place where I've spent quite a lot of time and quite excited about is Wikipedia, which is a collaborative work attempting to form a single body of knowledge. And this is done in a very adversarial way. There are constant editorial wars going on, and these wars are resolved not by somebody deciding on what is truth and what is not truth, but on everybody agreeing on what the standards for truth should be. And that there's a hierarchy, there's a pyramid of evidentiary standards that as you get higher and higher up the hierarchy, you get to drop information out until eventually you will come to an agreement at the very top with the very best evidence available. And this creates the same progressive approximation towards truth, very much like science. So I just wanted to put that out there for the audience and your own talk.
Thank you, wonderful, very good example. Arbiters of truth, and then unless there is meta-analysis, unless there is a consensus on that meta-analysis, it's really hard at times. Thank you for sharing that.
So just to refer to what you said in one of your slides and what Eric just said, is science trying to get to truth, or is it trying to get to reality? Is it trying to get to an approximation of reality? Because truth is subjective, as we've discussed and agreed.
Yes.
So I would argue that science is trying to get to an approximation of reality.
Yes, yes. But we want a true picture of reality. That's why the terminology issue, I agree with you, needs to be more clear. So when we say what is science seeking, science is trying to build models of reality, and those models need to be true. Closer and closer approximation to truth. And that's why we need objectivity, that's why we use more instruments. There's a whole sub-theme within philosophy of science called instrumentalism. Now, scientists are realists. We call it scientific realism. Small example, when you experience lightning, you don't experience flow of electrons. You experience light and sound, thunder. That's your experience. That's your common sense realism. That is what you feel, you see. But science uses that to experiment, to design, to create concepts. I'm using the word create. Concepts are created. Acceleration, gravity, mass, momentum, these are all concepts. You don't experience them. You experience weight, heaviness. Similarly, you experience lightning and thunder, you don't experience flow of electrons or discharge. But science uses a language which is independent of your personal experience. That's where some of the research in consciousness and perception and mind goes in a different direction, somewhat because we are not describing what you're experiencing. We're describing neuronal pathways, we're describing what's happening in your brain. But it refers to some of the psychological experiences you have. Similarly, as you correctly pointed out, Gautam, yes, science is seeking to create a model of reality, a truthful model, a model that is closer to truth, a model that is accurate, a model that reflects reality. Yes.
Okay, this question has nothing to do with what all epistemology. I'm just going back to Gandhi. It's a question everybody asks, and I don't know what you think. So he believes in nonviolence, but my understanding is that he had the Gita beside his bedside table, if the movie's correct.
Perhaps,
Yeah,
yeah.
right? And the Gita central message is an argument between Krishna and Arjuna about when it is
Appropriate.
permissible and even necessary
Yeah.
to employ violence in the name of a just
Yeah.
struggle.
Yes.
How do you reconcile those two?
I wouldn't know. If I was his secretary, I would have a harder time. I've been to some places where Gandhiji lived in India, in Pune. I don't know. For instance, I think in my view, whenever he tried to use non-violence, because he wanted to take a higher moral position. He was trying to recognize the humanity in all those people who were his adversaries, who he was challenging, because it was a freedom struggle. And perhaps he knew that Indian environment at the time was not ready to use violence for victory. Freedom struggle. Perhaps, I do not know. So I'm making conjectures here. We have to go and read his works, maybe ask people who are real experts in Gandhi's philosophies. I'm not. So I'm just trying to connect the dots. Because Bhagavad Gita says, ahimsa, no. Is this Gita or some other source? I'm forgetting, I want to be precise about the source. Ahimsa parmo dharma, dharma hinsa tathaiva vicha. Sometimes hinsa is also the right thing when it is needed. So in that very shloka, the param dharma, the highest ideal is non-violence. It's a term we use because there's no English translation. But there are situations where you might need that. Because Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, if you're referring to that particular text, emphasizes that if you do it with that particular dedication, with that awareness, with that compassion, then you are on the right path. Yes.
I guess that's a really interesting question, but I suppose, as you said, it's about you can, as a human being, there's a point where you have to, there's a justification for exercising your power. So I also want to sort of point you in the direction just to see whether you can say something about the use of power and vested interest and truth. So Gandhiji used his truth in a non-violent way, but can we juxtapose that to what's happening right now in terms of how power is being used and truth is being manipulated in that process? I know I'm kind of...
Power and truth.
Yes.
Speaking truth to power. We have, well, my personal views will be not necessary here, I believe. I'm not here an arbiter of something. I'm trying to connect the dots. A lot of the understanding comes from the idea that somebody already pointed out, in the end, lies are exposed. So for some time, the truth may become a little invisible or on the sidelined because power dominates. It's a matter of time. And secondly, Satyam eva jayate. Truth alone triumphs. That's the emblem. That's the final message. That's one of the emblems of the Republic of India. Truth alone triumphs, power not. So in spiritual domains, people ask this question. I've been asked this question several times. What are you seeking? Truth or power? At times, Satya or Shakti? because you will have a hard time recognizing and delineating the two. In the beginning, it seems like truth will be empowering, and the pathway at times does not seem like that, because you're seeking, you're in some dark alleys, you're trying to figure out things, because it's not a ready-made answer. Today, I did not want to emphasize that part too much. A lot of us in the modern society and even in history, there have been ready-made truths. Come on, take it, I'm giving you, because I know, because I'm the authority, I have discovered it. So there is an appeal to power, authority, power, legislative, political, military, physical, right? Circumstantial. These are all time-bound, time and space-bound. Power comes and goes, it dissipates. When somebody is seeking truth, if they are seeking truth, they will recognize, they will, in the due course of time, in the process of seeking truth, know that what they're seeking needs to reflect reality. And power is not always about reality. Power is about control. Power is about something else. Just some dot connections.
Yes. Sorry, taking too much time. I want to go back to Anil's question about justice. And Ramona might be able to add something to this as well. In the native people culture, when they come to judge what happened during an interaction between two people, the people take the stand to say how I contributed to the creation of that situation. I don't put the responsibility on the other person. I tell my part, the responsibility that I take for the part that I had done to create that situation. And I think that could lead to a higher understanding of ourselves as human beings and to come to a better resolution. Would you like to comment on that, Ramona?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. A couple of points, I think, in that context. The respect and the respect for the teacher or the wise person. And I remember at one point when a new prison for indigenous women was being opened, I talked to an old woman in the kitchen, and it worked out that she was the elder who was part of that place. And she said, I teach my daughters to respect themselves. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, you know, because I learned to respect my elders, respect my parents, respect my teachers. But she was teaching her daughters to respect themselves. And I realized that once they did that, then they couldn't do disrespectful things beyond that because the integrity was so deep and personal. But to broaden that discussion about justice, you know, we have this organization for the wrongfully convicted. So the truths that sometimes our systems accept are not necessarily the absolute truths. And of course, particularly in colonized countries, because this is the backdrop that we're all dealing with, imprisonment and crime and punishment means different things. And a lot of times it's political, that backdrop. So there are multiple truths being expressed. But I actually wanted to just make a brief comment when somebody asked about violence. And I just had a very big privilege of visiting the Phoenix Center in South Africa a few months ago. And I met Ila Gandhi, who is Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter. And why I'm mentioning this is because at that Phoenix settlement, in 1985, there were riots, and much of the land was taken over by squatters. And then more recently, in 2008 in South Africa, there was more violence. And so really it's become like rather a challenging taboo area for a lot of people. A lot of people are very afraid of going in there. So much of crime, so much of tension. I happened to be going there with some workers who were doing some work with children. And they were African women, and they were afraid of actually going to the center, but we were meeting with Ila. And what I realized was this you know, she's older than me, so sort of elderly woman, travels to this area as regularly as she can, probably several times a week, and has been building bridges with the community over there and teaching the children, teaching the people how technology works, has technology classes for students, problem solving, cookery, gardening, things like that. But what I understood then that was creating the transformation was the relationship, the relational aspect, which is of course a very big thing in South Africa because we come from such a racialized background. So to be building bridges across that barrier is really, really very impressive. And there then I see the Gandhi non-violent approach to creating social change being manifested in a very real way, in a very kind of challenging reality, where the reality, as you say, and truth mean different things to different people. So thanks for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you for that. Wonderful. Thank you for that comment, Dr. Hindu.
I'd like to comment. I have worked with First Nations over my years. I worked with Inuit community for years. And I went to elders when there was a conflict. I don't think many people remember 30 years ago there was a conflict in Akwesasne. And because I had always looked after them, I had a relationship with them, as you have pointed out. And the community was divided. So I went to the elders. And I said to the elders that it's not unusual. Every family has different values. How do you solve these problems? So as they were telling me, I said, you know, you sound like my grandmother. What I learned at childhood. So I worked on it, and when people agreed to go home, the conflict was still there. So I sat down with all the higher government agencies there, and I said, nothing is solved. They're going home, it'll start again tomorrow. So something has to be done. And they said, okay, what do you want? I said, you have to bring these people together and talk it out as a family and come to a conclusion. And they said, okay, we will send psychologists, we will send psychiatrists, and they will do it. And the community said, no, if she doesn't develop, we're not going to bother. So I spent a year and a half over there, sitting in the families, sitting in the schools, sitting in that, and when the conference ended, international media was there. A year later, international media was again there, but there was no problem, because they sorted out themselves. And what I learned working with this, I thought I knew everything after those years of working with First Nation. And then I came across Inuit community, and I realized I know nothing. I went back to the elders, and I said, okay, what should we do? How should we set up the healthcare for you? And we set it up, and then I brought the elder to go through it. My mind was there. And she says, Indu, it's not going to work. I said, what do you mean? She says, what you have set up is what is outside. You go, you register, you see a nurse, you see a doctor, and you go home. And half of my people are not even going to talk. So I said, okay, what should we do? He said, you have to have somebody who they can relate to. So you have to have a person who speaks the language, who has the time to talk to them, and that's the system we set. And that, and the government told me you're only going to have 2,000 patients. We have over 10,000 Inuit coming, because it is something they resonate with. They think it's, the other people understand what they need, and we try to minimize conflict with them. So for me, it's very important. It's not my way and highway. It is sit down and learn from them. And that is the key. For me, all the journey, all the truth is that sitting down and walking with people on the journey and learning from them.
Thank you. Wonderful. The collective collaboration, relationship building. That's awesome. Comments and questions? Yes?
I'm going to jump in.
Oh,
here
that's
real
good.
quick. My background's in hard science, and I want to challenge the idea of my truth and your truth. In my field, that's baloney. It's wrong. Like, if your view is not falsifiable, take it away. You're off playing your own little game. You're not talking about reality, and you can't be talking about anything of any value to me. Because if we can't agree, if your truth will always stand separate from my truth, we don't really have anything to talk about. It's the joint verification that your truth can be checked with my truth. And we can falsify or agree on a truth that makes it valuable. So I think our new post-truth society is badly misled by this idea of my truth and no truth. So I'd like to take you to task for introducing the idea.
Yes. From a scientific viewpoint, I'm absolutely in agreement. I mentioned scientific realism. If we don't believe, if we don't agree that this is a bottle, and something is there, we call it a bottle in English language, with that particular spelling. You can change the spelling if you like, but we have to agree on that. And it is made up of steel. You see that nothing is there, you start saying this looks like pink color or whatever, then we can't move forward. You're free to have that experience and that opinion and that view. But then we cannot talk about this, which we call bottle, and what's the shape, measurement, etc., 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 all those kinds of things. From a scientific viewpoint, there is no individual truth. That's why the need for objectivity. That's why the need for objective evaluation, verification, and fundamental principles of method of science. Falsifiability. In principle, we can prove that the bottle doesn't have this. So let's go and measure it. If we don't want to do anything about it, ignore it, then there's no knowledge seeking. So I agree with you, but then there are other ways of knowing. They may not be scientific. So I agree with the scientific point of view. And then with this in this new world where expertise is not really valued anymore, the same way it used to be. I'm not saying it should be the same way, but today anybody who has the capacity to create content can get onto a platform and get a few million followers, and the lowest common denominator they touch upon, easier to blurt out truths. If they happen to have support of powerful individuals through or powerful resources, they become arbiters of truth. And then they can say, this is my truth versus somebody else's truth. And then, of course, we are not dealing with scientific validity. It's mostly in the domain of beliefs. And then we are not on solid ground. Yes, Gautam.
So this leads to the question, from a phenomenological or extra-linguistic viewpoint, is there such a thing as truth? Can truth exist outside of language?
Yes, perhaps. I'm saying yes because language, we saw perception, we experience things. It doesn't have to be linguistic. We don't have to call it a bottle. We can call it botal in Hindi language or other languages, in French, something else, right? Other languages, Punjabi. But are we referring to something outside of us? So it doesn't have to be language bound. But where I said, is there some description that reflects reality? And do we agree that reality is not just a construction of our minds? Then yes, truth exists. Otherwise, we are in the world of idealism where my experience alone is my evidence. Then there is no way you can find out whether somebody is standing there and talking to us or not. Maybe there's an individual talking to us there, but we cannot verify that. No way to figure that out because that's that's also a philosophical viewpoint. It's called idealism. Very valid, because you can only be sure with higher absolute certainty about your own experience. You cannot be sure. I cannot be sure that you all have minds. So I'm relying on behaviors. I cannot be sure that you all experience the world in similar ways. Again, allowing that possibility. So that flexibility. We used that term in the past a bit, but now in a more positive way. We have to allow that possibility. We have to listen to other people. Dr. Indu mentioned relationships. Our friend mentioned another element of, what is my contribution? That individual, how did I contribute to that situation or that truth? So that individuals, that we allow that space.
Here's an experiment. You can see this side.
Yes.
I cannot see this side. And you can't see this side.
Yes.
But by being in truth, both of us being in truth, we can see both sides.
Yes.
And this is how we can augment our consciousness.
Exactly.
Elevate ourselves.
Yes.
But not to insist that this is the only side there is.
Yes.
This is such a simple thing that I think people need to be reminded of this.
Yes, which means we need to be reminded of our own limitations. Correct. That I cannot see or see what you see. Correct. But I allow you to share, and we collaborate, we work together, we build a relationship, we use common language, right now English, so that we can move towards it. That's what I call collective instead of individual. Because without collective efforts, we won't get anywhere. We need collective efforts to truth seeking. Thank you.
So this thing about knowledge having to be falsified and the whole scientific method, I get it.
Yes.
We have to live together. So we have to come to some agreements about what's true and what's not, so we can create public policy based on what we think is true, like whether or not a vaccine is going to prevent measles, right? And that's a whole realm of knowledge, and we build action on that knowledge that we can agree on based on a method that many people say is the best method we have.
Yes.
For group.
One of the best methods we have, yes. Yeah.
But then there's this whole realm of and everyone in this room has had some experience of maybe you've done some energy healing, and you know that you felt something shift in your energy field, and you could never prove that to anybody, or the experience of falling in love, or feeling the energy when your child is in danger and lifting a 2-ton truck together. All of these human experiences that are so much more visceral and elemental and ultimately meaningful to us.
Yes.
That have nothing to do with what the rest of the world would agree or validate or not, or any method. And they're the things that really matter to us. They're the things we'll stand up and say, I experienced it and I know, and no one can prove to me that it's not even up for debate. And then on the other side of that, of course, there then are people who can be manipulated into believing that they have some experience that's not verifiable. And then you have the whole phenomenon of what's happening in all these far right places. How do you connect those dots?
They are dots in different domains. One is subjective. Nobody has access to what you experience. Experience is inherently private. What you can talk about is behavior that is observable and measurable. Not all behavior is even measurable. So measurement has its limitations in the subjective domain. So we cannot talk about what somebody experienced, whether some spirit came and spoke to me. Yes, what I can do is measure your brain activity and see whether your brain is active, whether the auditory system is active, whether you see something, you report it, we trust you, that what you're saying is your experience. That's all we can do. We cannot invalidate it either. It should not be. We should not be invalidating, somebody had a spiritual experience or extrasensory experience. We need to be flexible, as I was saying, and allowing that possibility. But they are in different domains. That's why the distinction inside versus outside, subjective versus objective. Sometimes spiritual versus scientific. They're not always opposed. Somebody had a question. Yeah.
Funny question.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel myself safe by speaking lie instead of speaking truth. Is it wrong or right?
Oh, I like that. Sometimes I feel safe speaking.
Safer, yes.
Yeah.
So if I speak,
Hmm?
I lie
Yes.
instead of speaking truth.
Hmm.
So what should I? Is it right or wrong? Should I?
That I do not want to comment
If I
on,
feel
cannot
it
comment on.
myself
Yes.
safe, if I
Yes.
feel myself
Yes.
safe, then
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
good for me if I speak.
Yes. In Sanskrit, we have a saying. Apologies to the audience who don't understand Sanskrit. I can translate. Satyam bruyat priyam bruyat na bruyat asatyam apriyam. Speak the truth. Speak sweet. Do not speak untruth and non-sweet stuff. Which means sometimes you speak things. You have to see the context in which you're speaking, the audience, the target, the potential impact, right?
Protecting myself.
Yeah, you're protecting yourself,
Yes,
right?
that's why
So
I'm
space and
speaking
time, that context in which
that
you,
I'm speaking
yeah.
lie.
Yes.
So truth maybe can give me harm.
It can harm you. Yes. Are you ready for that harm? Are you able to withstand that consequence?
What should I do it?
There's no should. That is inquiry. To find out what should one do. That's the inquiry. That's the human condition we are living in. And that's inquiry. As people move towards some level of evolution, supposedly they develop a strength to speak the truth irrespective of the consequences. It requires strength, it requires the ability to withstand the consequences. Gandhiji did that, perhaps, right? At least he was attempting. Many people did that. Whistleblowers do that. They sometimes take extraordinary risks. They challenge the whole ecosystem. Sometimes entire governments across the globe seek these individuals and seek to punish them. We have many examples around. We have heard of those individuals. Some of us are doing that on a regular basis, but we are navigating the challenges because we want sometimes certain goals that are not truth focused. We want some benefits. We want to benefit other individuals. We want to protect some things, some people, some interests. And then the truth part, speaking the truth part, or even seeking the truth part, is not congruent with your goals.
It will make me harm if I speak.
Yes, it can. Short-term harms, maybe long-term harms. Thank you for that.
Actually, I think we are
Okay.
done with the time, so
Yes.
I'll keep it for now.
Thank you.
I think we should wrap up.
Thank you for all the questions, all the comments. I'm very grateful for all the questions, all the feedback, all the challenging points, all the silence, all the participation, and the grace. Thank you.
Gupta ji. Yeah, it's done.